we will start with phonetics and phonology. So the best way to start a new topic is to look at the, the definition of the terms. So now what is phonetics and what is phonology? We will look at the similarities and differences. Phonetics is the scientific study of human speech sounds, and phonology is the scientific study of sound patterning in spoken languages. At surface level and at this stage, you may find both these field or both these definitions similar, but there is a crucial difference. First, we will look at the similarity in the definition or in the field of study. The scientific study, both phonetics and phonology are scientific study of sound. But what is the difference? The difference is phonetics is general. When I say phonetics is general, because in phonetics we study human speech sounds. So we are studying all the speech sounds that are used in languages across the globe. So there are certain speech sounds. For example, in English, there are 44 speech sounds for vowel and consonant, including vowel and consonant sound. But in English, we have only 26 letters starting from A and ending with Z or Z. But when it comes to sounds, there are 44 sounds. If you speak Hindi language, if you speak Dogri language, then you know that certain sounds are shared in both the languages. Certain sounds are specific. So certain sounds like j that you only find in English, but certain sounds are shared. Certain sounds like na, tha, ta, you will find in Hindi, but you won't find in English language. So human speech sounds are those sounds which human beings can produce using their oral cavity, using their mouth. That sounds are human speech sounds. So there are a number of sounds that are used across languages. But when it comes to phonology, it is different from phonetics, because phonetics is general, phonology is specific. So when we say the scientific study of sound patterning in spoken languages, that means we are studying how different sounds they interact and make a word. You will agree that words in English are different from the words in Hindi or in Punjabi or in Dogri. That means the sounds, though they are similar in at certain level in both the languages, Hindi and English, but when they pattern, when they interact with each other, they they interact in different manner. So the way certain sounds they interact and make an English word is different from sounds they interact and make a Hindi word. So we can have English phonology, we can have Hindi phonology, we can have Dogri phonology. So when we use these terms, that means we are studying scientifically patterning, sound patterning in those languages. But we can't use terms like English phonetics, Hindi phonetics, or Hindi, or let's say Dogri phonetics, because phonetics is general, and when we talk about phonetics, we study human speech sounds that are used by human beings, that are used by different speakers across languages. So speech sounds and how they are used in language, this theoretical context is called phonetics and phonology. So when we study phonetics, when we study phonology, it is not a course like a crash course or a spoken course in English language or a spoken course in Hindi language. It is not the case. But the situation is that we are undertaking theoretical context. We need to understand where these sounds are used. So this is the way through which we study phonetics and phonology, and this is how we will study this field. Now, when we study phonetics and phonology, then we also need to understand this anecdote. So this anecdote is by G.B. Shaw, George Bernard Shaw, a literary figure in English language. And what G.B. Shaw said, G.B. Shaw highlighted inadequacies of English writing system. Now, when we talk about inadequacies, we are talking about the problems that are there in English writing system. And what G.B. Shaw said, G.B. Shaw said, fish should be pronounced as goti. Now, why and how fish should be pronounced as goti, it is interesting to note. Now, you can see these words, enough. Enough is one word, and the last two letters in this word is GH. But these two letters indicate which sound? F, enough. So we have picked these two words GH from here. Then there is a word women. Now this letter O in women is pronounced as E. So we have taken this as E. And in nation, we have this TI, and this TI is pronounced as sh. So when we take these letters, then we find that fish should be pronounced as ghoti, because we are simply replacing the sounds that we make in fish with the sounds that are used in these words. So it is an anecdote. So it's not like a prescription. It's an anecdote highlighting the inadequacies of English writing system. And G.B. Shaw said, and G.B. Shaw highlighted these inadequacies. But what is a cue? What is important for us here? The important thing is we need to make a difference between writing system and sound system. The way we write in the English language is not the way we pronounce them. So we pronounce like GH here, like in enough, GH sound represents F. Letter O in women represents E sound. TI in nation represents sh sound. So this indicates that in English language we need to learn how to write separately and how to spell separately and how to pronounce a particular word separately. So there is no one-to-one match as in Hindi, because in Hindi the system is alpha syllabary, and in an alpha syllabary system the way we write is the way we pronounce. So there is no extra effort to learn the spelling. So I have not heard this type of phrase in my entire life, that a Hindi speaker is saying that I am learning Hindi spelling. That is not the case, but it is always the case with English writing system, because the way you pronounce a word is not the way you spell them. So this problem is there. There is no one-to-one match between spelling system and sound system, and because of that, G.B. Shaw said and highlighted the inadequacies of English writing system, and he said fish should be pronounced as goti. So Peter Roch, in his book English Phonetics and Phonology, page number 1, says Because of the notoriously confusing nature of English spelling, it is particularly important to learn to think of English pronunciation in terms of phonemes rather than letters of the alphabet. So when we spell a word, we are actually using letters of the alphabet like A, B, C, D. These are letters. So in enough, we have these letters E, N, O, U, G, H. This is one thing, but we pronounce it enough. Fine. So here, like there is no one-to-one match. So here, when we write this fur, GH represents fur. That is actually sound fur. When we write E for letter O, so this E is also a sound. Then here when we write sh as for TI letters, then it is again a sound. So there is no one-to-one match. Sound is different, and individual sound unit like f, like e, like sh, they are known as phonemes. Individual sound segments are known as phonemes. In any language, we can identify a small number of regularly used sounds. So these are regularly used sounds. Like for we can use in different words. E we can also use in different words. Sure we can also use in different words. So these small number of regularly used sounds, and how many they are in English? In English, these sounds are 44. That means using 44 sounds, we can speak English very fluently. We can combine and make thousands of words, and these regular sounds or individual sound segment, they are known as phonemes. Now when we study phonetics and phonology, then we also need to look inside ourselves. Now when I use this phrase look inside ourselves, that doesn't mean that you need to think about yourself, but you need to think the physiology, your body. Now since we can't do that on our own, so here it's a diagram, and this diagram reflects sound producing system. Now we need to look at how this sound producing system functions. Now you are very well known that we all have two lungs, and these lungs, they are the source of moving air. We inhale and we exhale, so it's a continuous process, and we breathe in, we breathe out. So that is the air. What we breathe in, what we breathe out, that is air. Air is responsible for our life. That we also know. Oxygen is responsible for our life. But at the same time, this air is also used when we produce a sound. So when we produce a sound, how we produce a sound? When the air is moving out from our lungs. So when we are exhaling, then this part is known as your larynx. This small dot, as you can see here, this is your larynx. Now what is larynx? The sound source. The vocal folds are within the larynx. So larynx is also known as voice box, and in this voice box you have vocal folds. Vocal folds are like very thin membranes, like onion skin, very thin onion skin, like a transparent onion skin, and these are your vocal folds. So when air moves out, they flutter, and when they flutter, sound is produced. So you can consider this larynx like a flute. Now what is the nature of the flute? You can see that in a general flute you have 6 holes, and there is on the top there is a place through which you can blow air. So when you blow air and when you press different holes, then there is a sound change. So similarly, according to the fluttering of these vocal folds, there is a sound change. If you want to be more loud, then the flutter will be more. You can whisper, then there is a different stage. So this larynx is the sound source that is responsible for producing the sound. So let's think of that first. From these two lungs, which are the source of moving air, air passes through this larynx. Now after larynx there are three filters. This is pharynx. Fine, this pipe is like 7 to 8 centimeter. This pipe is known as pharynx, and the top of the pharynx, like here the pharynx, here it is divided into two parts. So like if the air moves from here, then it has two ways to go. Like one, it can move from the mouth, and it can also move from the nasal cavity. So two ways are there. And so this is pharynx is your first filter. Then oral cavity, that means your mouth, that is your second filter. In your mouth you have lips, teeth, tongue. Fine. And this hanging part, when you open your mouth wide open, when you say ah, and you look yourself in the mirror, you will find this hanging part. This hanging part is known as uvula. Fine, this is your uvula that you can see. And this uvula is flexible. That means it can be lowered. Now it is in the lowered position, but if it is raised, then it will touch this the wall of the pharynx. So when it touches the wall of the pharynx, then the nasal cavity is blocked and all the air will flow through your mouth. So two possibilities are there. Now it is lowered, so air can move from oral cavity, as well as oral air can move from nasal cavity. But when it is raised, that means when this thing touches here, the roof, the pharynx, then the air will pass through mouth only. So these two possibilities are there. And this is the back part, and this is known as the velum that you have. So as I said that larynx is known as voice box. It is also known as Adam's apple, and larynx is the formal biological name that you have. Now this is just a biology, and you need not to afraid of these diagrams. So generally these are vocal folds, as you can see. So here this is the enlarged position of this dot. This is the larynx, and here you can see the enlarged position of this larynx. So these are two vocal folds that you have. As I said that these vocal folds are like the thin onion skin, like this. So they flutter, and because of this fluttering, the voice is produced. So then you have arytenoids. Fine, these two arytenoids on which they are supported with. Then there is a space. You can find there is a space between vocal folds, and that space is known as glottis. So this space is known as glottis. Then you have this thyroid cartilage. Then you have vocal ligament that is there. Fine. And this thyroid cartilage, it rests on the windpipe. That is your windpipe. This is your windpipe, and this windpipe is also known as trachea. Fine. And you have this cricoid cartilage and thyroid cartilage as well. And then you have this arytenoids. So vocal folds, they are attached to arytenoids. Fine. So they are attached to arytenoids. So the main portion of the larynx formed by thyroid cartilage. So this is like thyroid cartilage. It is covered with thyroid cartilage. So this is the basic and the enlarged view of larynx that you have, this thing. Right. So I stop here, and if you have any doubt related to what we have discussed, then you can also ask me. I would be happy to answer you.